Hi, Mike Matchett with Small World Big Data. I am here today with IBM, and we are going to talk about all things IT. I'm really excited today because while I'm just like the tiny tip of this very large dog, IBM is a large part of the very large dog. And I've got Scott Baker here from IBM, who is now running a large part of that large part of the dog. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate being here. This is so awesome.
All right, Scott. So you've got what all the things you've got? You've got storage, you've got Z, you've got power, you've got Linux. What have you got your hands around over there at IBM?
I tell you, so I get an opportunity to work with some amazing people focused in some great parts of the business.
Yeah.
When you look at the way that product marketing is structured today at IBM, we're shifting more toward a portfolio view instead of a product view. And this really enables us to start getting into solution-based or value-based engagements with the market, and not so much focused on the nuances of each individual product. Now, while those are important, what this allows us to do is begin to think about how we're delivering hybrid cloud strategies to organizations that are on their digital journey right now and help them overcome the traditional stopping points along the way, and then begin to shift more into themes about how we bring these products to market in support of those bigger solutions.
So rather than talk about speeds and feeds or talk about particular technology features, the competitive rat race of feature, we know IBM's good at that. You've been doing it for decades now and staying ahead of the competition. You're bringing the story up to a point where you're saying, look, we really want to help you achieve what business goals. We want to help you operationalize things. We want to help you become more resilient. Let's talk through some of those key areas and themes then. And let's start with that operational theme I think we were talking about. What is involved in helping people make the use of their IT investments?
Right on. So I want to make sure that I'm clear here. It's not to say that the speeds and feeds are going away. I think
Okay.
those are absolutely valuable to parts of the buying centers that we work with and we support today. But ultimately, when you think about solving challenges for the organizations that are out there, we want to show up with a more holistic solution view. And so instead of talking about here's the net new widget with this kind of speed and this kind of feed and this kind of connection point on this kind of PCI gen whatever, I would rather roll that up and talk about on the journey to becoming a more digital business where the focus is on agility and maximizing the monetary value and relevance that data has for the organizations that rely on it, and the necessity to deliver the workloads in a way that matches the speed and performance that are needed. We have to help organizations overcome the optimization of their IT environment. And this is a continual process. So when we talk about optimizing IT, this is driving agility at the infrastructure level so that you can deliver applications and data to the relevant users regardless of where they're located. Now, if we're talking about optimizing IT, it stands to reason that we should also be talking about the idea of how we safeguard data.
Mm-hmm.
In the storage division at IBM, we believe that it's our responsibility to create an information supply chain for our audience that can't be breached. And that's a big aspirational goal. But if I can't deliver data to you with the assurances that it's not going to be affected by a cyber attack or a data breach to the extent to which you can't recover from it, then how can you build a confident and secure business from which you can then deploy those same data points and applications out to the rest of the world? Those two thematic layers that I just gave to you, that creates what we refer to as the hybrid cloud portfolio,
Okay.
where we're securely and in an autonomous way delivering applications and data. We're helping to consolidate investments that organizations have made in the IT environment, and we're certainly driving toward a self-service kind of an approach. We're talking about delivering cloud architectures on-prem at that point in both the form and function as well as how you consume it. And that creates the best foundation ever for getting into how we help you accelerate the application stack that you need to run, whether that's through a modernization effort or a steady state running activity, getting into cloud and data agility as you begin to adopt multi-cloud architectures, and you really start getting into application and data as a service, and then into sustainability as well, because I think the ESG side of the house, where we're talking about delivering on green IT initiatives, are just as paramount in terms of how we deliver our technology in support of the solutions that I mentioned.
All right, so that's a pretty broad swath of things, but I think it sums up the IT journey that people are facing. I want to, improve what I'm doing. I want to make a better world for my company. I've got this certain IT investment that I'm making. I want to do the right things. I want to focus on resiliency. Cyber resiliency is a big thing. Perhaps we should dive into that a little bit here in a second. Modernize my application stack. Things are happening all over the place. People are moving application compute to the edge, so that's a big thing. And then you mentioned, mobility and stuff. So let's just dive a little bit into cyber resiliency. How should we think of what IBM is bringing to the table for cyber resiliency these days? What's the leadership position there?
Yeah, so I made that comment about this idea of a sense of responsibility to create an information supply chain that can't be breached. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I was the guy in charge of every storage vendor would adopt this kind of a mentality when they think about cyber resiliency. As an industry, I think we are all responsible for helping our customers create locations where data gets stored that is as close to net zero on attack surface and risk for unauthorized access. But for us at IBM, we take this very serious, and it starts with the idea of creating a consistent and secure infrastructure under which you're storing data that might be in a block format or a structured data format. You might be using distributed file and object from an unstructured or semi-structured format. You might be even thinking about, how do I drive persistent storage for stateful containers and keeping that secure? And what we do here from a cyber resiliency perspective is we start first and foremost with the kinds of data services that we offer in terms of efficiently storing the information and creating the safeguards on the data as it retains itself in the volumes or the file systems that we provide. This would be immutable snapshots stored in a secure and isolated recovery environment so that you could very quickly recover from an attack as long as you well understood the veracity of the information in question and the fact that it would not be, having any kind of indication of any threat signatures. But that's not enough, right? That's a quick response method. But what we want to do is set up the appropriate attack defense measures. So we have Cyber Vault and IBM Spectrum Sentinel that we brought on board to create verified and validated points of restore that have been scanned and cleansed of any kind of threat signatures. They've been validated to work with the application, i.e. the creation of an app consistent restore point, and they've been tagged so that you could very quickly find the clean application consistent restore to get your environment back up and running in minutes if you were to suffer from a cyber threat of some kind. And if you absolutely want to, and you find that there is a threat signature or it isn't application consistent, you can move that to a secured workbench area for forensic analysis. We talk about that in the terms of creating these air gapping approaches where the immutable snapshots are the logical air gapping of data because they're stored in a secure and isolated recovery environment for which no one can access without the appropriate credentials. We talk about the Cyber Vault and the Sentinel as being secure and operationally air gap because they're in the same network. They're just working with specialized copies of the data to create those verified and validated restore points. But what's unique here is that we can also spin those verified and validated restore points off to a physically air gap solution that could be traditional tape or stored in a public cloud. These kinds of approaches that we're taking aren't limited to just the application stack and the snapshots. We also have a very similar solution that we attach to our backup operations through our Spectrum Protect line. We're actually able to not only identify and grade backup sets for their cleanliness, we can actually walk them through automatic cleansing as well as do test recovery operations to ensure that should you need to execute your recovery plan, you're going to do so in a confident manner based on prior successes that have been done in a sandbox and controlled environment.
So the cyber resiliency is not just about finding that you've been attacked and then recovering real quickly, right? There's a lot of stuff people can do upfront to identify their vulnerabilities,
Right.
prepare recovery, really become expert in their data so that, not just if this happens, but when it happens, given the state of the world.
Right, and this comes back to the solution comment that you made. So at IBM, we offer a free vendor agnostic consultative engagement that we refer to as the cyber resilience assessment. This is about determining the scope of your attack surface. The next thing that we do is we'll talk to you about the attack defenses that you can put up. And I mentioned those in those products that I was talking about. But that's not enough to be a solution. What we also do is we expand our reach within IBM to integrate cleanly with the IBM security software, the QRadar and the Guardian, where QRadar is monitoring machine-to-machine interactions and operations, and Guardian is really looking at the human-to-machine kinds of activities, looking for anomalous behavior, and then automatically making things happen. Could be the creation of a snapshot, could be the execution of a response and recovery operation. So what I would ask all of the vendors that would watch your video cast here, don't just stay focused on the response to the recovery side of the NIST framework or whatever you follow. Organize yourself so that you're helping the companies that you service to identify their attack surface, set up the defenses, detect, monitor, and respond to the events as you go through a recovery operation.
I mean, that really makes a better environment for all IT folks to get their jobs done and move their business forward, really optimizing the business. Uh, I think, Scott, we could talk about a lot of things. I mean, you mentioned application acceleration. I know hybrid cloud's a big thing on your plate. We might have to have you come back and talk to us about what you're doing in the hybrid cloud space with all those technologies to help someone build that. But I did want to ask you, given all these changes that are happening, given that everyone's on a cloud transition journey, given that IBM is really focused now on providing this kind of solution perspective to clients and helping them really get the job done rather than worry about the technology that's being put in place. What kind of advice would you have for our audience member here, the sort of the IT generalist, and say, what are they looking at in their professional development? Because it's no longer, again, about technology necessarily, but someone still has to log in and administer stuff. What should they be trying to do?
I love the term IT generalist. For each and every one of you that are watching this, I know that you try to specialize and be really good at one thing. I know I try to, but I don't know how many times I shift from one part of my day working on product messaging to somebody calling me up going, how do I log into my iCloud account? You all know what I'm talking about. It's those people outside of this camera who think that because you're in IT, you know everything about anything technology-wise. Here's what I would say to the folks that are out there that consider themselves to be IT generalists. The world continues to evolve to as a service consumption or as a service adoption models, where we look at cloud more as a platform that we want to build and deliver services on top of. So if you are an IT generalist, I would encourage you to understand how your business transacts. That's going to shape your data strategies and your IT decision-making process. Get a seat at the table in any buying conversation that's going on so that you can use your experience to help guide that decision. So the next thing that I would tell you to do, besides understanding how the business gets transacted as a means to shape your strategy and being at the table, begin to focus your time and energy on understanding the impacts of artificial intelligence and machine learning.
All right.
The world is moving in that direction, more so than you would actually believe. And as you think about the use of AI and ML, and especially in automation to help make your life easier, where AI and ML is being used, whether that's from an AI ops perspective, a data insights perspective, or actually the aggregation of data sets to service out the needs of next generation kinds of workloads, it's incredibly important that you take full advantage of automation as well to make your life easier and deliver on the self-service that I'd mentioned before. The last thing that I would share with you too is such a heavy topic has been focused here on cyber resiliency that what I would encourage you to do is seek out the opportunity to become a certified security expert in whoever you choose to go with. I know that IBM has one of these. I'm sure Cisco has one of these, but get yourself immersed in cyber resiliency or cyber security as a technology stack and a process by which you would institute within your organization. It adds to your ability to deliver to the current business that you're at, as well as the future businesses that you will work for.
All right, so AIML, automation, security expertise, all great things. They're all going to add together and I think point someone into a pretty great future of IT benefit for their company. One last thing, Scott. There is a lot of stuff. IBM makes a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things we talked about and just barely touched on. If someone wants to learn more about this, they can go to the IBM website. But do you have anything specific you might want to point people to look at?
Absolutely. So, I would encourage you to go to ibm.com/storage. It's a great way to get started. We have a number of learn pages there as well as a number of assets that you can download to help get you started. If you want to jump all in and go straight to an individual product, the navigations will help you get there. But we really tried to architect your web experience so that it's about treating you as the consumer and not your business when it comes to buying storage from IBM.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we could talk for hours because we've just barely pulled that peel off the orange a little bit and looked inside, and we know it's a big orange. So definitely come back with what's the latest and greatest things you want to talk about to our audience. I'm sure we'll always be interested. With that, check it out, folks, and look at some of the cyber resiliency things they just announced, and look at things like the SVC. Look at things like Predator. Look at some of the other pieces that IBM, in particular IBM Storage, because that's what I know best, can put together for you. So take care.